Okay, let us now look at example 4 of our lecture notes. So in example 4, let us read the question together. You are given a photoelectric experiment and you're told that different metals are actually illuminated with monochromatic light of variable frequency and variable intensity. It was found that for each metal, electrons were emitted with the spread of kinetic energies up to a maximum value. Then you are asked to find what does this maximum kinetic energy depend on. So let's pick up the keywords in the question as usual. So for this experiment, what we have is we have different metals. Now when we have different metals, it means that the work function actually varies. So we are also told that what is also changing in this experiment is the frequency of light. And then for each of the light, what we have done is we have shone it at different intensity. And you are looking at the maximum kinetic energy. So let me write that down. When you put it in symbols, then it's easier to analyze. And so what we see is we have variables like work function, frequency, intensity, and KEmax to look at. So let us think back on any relationship that relates some of these quantities together. Yes, we do have, and we have Einstein's photoelectric experiment equation, which tells us the maximum kinetic energy of a photoelectron that's emitted is equals to the energy of a photon subtracted the work function of the metal. Now this is for one photon and one electron's interaction. Why? Because we know that in a photoelectric experiment, the interaction between a photon and an electron is 1-to-1. Alright? So, and we also know because of this 1-to-1 relationship that the maximum kinetic energy does not depend on the intensity of light. So if we look through all the options, can you tell me which are the options that are obviously wrong? So let us go through the options. And what we can see is that KEmax is only dependent on two variables. It's dependent on frequency and work function. And it's actually independent of intensity. So let's go through the options very quickly. Which are the ones that are obviously wrong? Let us look at A. Yes. Is it wrong or right? It is actually wrong. Why? Because yes, it depends on the metal, but it tells us that it's not dependent on the frequency, so this is incorrect. This is correct, it's independent of the intensity, but A is wrong because it tells us that it's not dependent on the frequency. And in B, is B wrong or right? Okay, so we see that B is also wrong, mainly because even though, yes, it depends on the metal, but it tells us it's actually dependent on the intensity. Another statement is also wrong because it's also dependent on the frequency, but it tells us it's not dependent on the frequency. So let's look at C. It tells us KEmax depends on the metal. Good. Okay. And the frequency. Good. It's independent on the intensity. Well done. So this is our answer. Let's go through the options for completeness sake. In D, it tells us it depends on the frequency, so this is correct. On the intensity, no, definitely not. But not on the metal, which is incorrect because we know that the work function will change and that will affect the maximum kinetic energy. And lastly, it depends on the metal, the frequency, and again, intensity, and we already know it's not correct. So what we have is that the answer is C.